Rallies across the country opposing President Trump's agenda on the day of the president's military parade. They cap a week of demonstrations against immigration raids that began in Los Angeles and spread nationwide. Today's events in about 2,000 cities and towns were organized by the No Kings movement, which calls the administration's actions authoritarian. There were rallies near Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in West Palm Beach, Florida.
No ICE! No KKK! No fascist USA!
In Boston, where it was raining. In Atlanta, with Proud Boy counter-protesters looking on. And in Philadelphia, at the flagship No Kings rally. The No Kings protests were organized by a coalition of groups. Lisa Gilbert is co-president of one of them, Public Citizen, a progressive advocacy group. Lisa, what have you been hearing from across the country about crowd turnout and that sort of thing?
It's been amazing. We've seen, as you mentioned, 2,000 plus events, millions of people turning out peacefully to say, in America, we don't have a king. In America, we're a democracy. It's been amazing and inspiring, frankly. Everyone is turning out with the same message that we've seen authoritarian excess and corruption in the Trump administration. We're watching them crack down on free speech, detaining people for political positions, and that's just not what America is all about. And people have really hewed to that message and been very clear and safe.
This follows the hands-off protest in April, the May Day protest. Are there more planned? What's next for this coalition?
It's a great question. Yes, it's been a crescendo of action. I think more and more people, each time we organize, turn out and show their discomfort with what is happening in our country. Looking ahead, we'll see organizing on Juneteenth. We'll see organizing on later on in the summer around Labor Day. We expect to organize whenever we need to in a rapid response manner as well. Obviously, it's been a challenging week with what has been happening in California. We're worried about what the administration has been doing. So I would anticipate the crescendo will continue and we'll see more and more organizing and people out in the streets.
The Lakota Music Project is the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra's flagship Bridging Cultures program. First created between 2005 and 2008, the Lakota Music Project addresses racial tension by creating an environment of openness through music.
So the conversations were deep and rich, and the programs we came up with were meaningful on both sides of the equation. Educational to some degree, but emotionally impactful.
After 4 years of gathering and collaborating, the tour played its first note in 2009. The Lakota Music Project concert program features combinations of South Dakota symphony musicians and Native American musicians, each performing music of their own heritages.
And when I first joined the orchestra in 2003, when we went out to Pine Ridge, it was just so clear to me that we needed to be working with students and others out there rather than playing just classical music for them. So it kind of began the conversation in that regard. When David Geyer got here, he really kind of championed that whole initiative and got a lot of tribal elders involved. And we started collaborating with other musicians, Native musicians from various reservations.
More than just an outreach program, the engagement developed over time through the sharing of stories and songs. The musicians hoping to progress cultural understanding.
We've continued to develop this program and continue to tour it. We've added new pieces of music that were written for us. Two cultures shaking hands and learning from each other, exploring each other's musical languages. And our hope is to pass on this tradition to the next generation. That's exactly what we do. We play over 500 years worth of music. We are stewards of this art form, and we hope to pass it on better than we found it. So that was the initial point of connection. What does it actually mean or look like to become friends with somebody who is totally different from you, who thinks totally different from you? This is, I would say, the essence of Lakota Music Project.
Music can speak so many languages. So I thought it was a really interesting endeavor. And And it took a lot of trust from both parties, and it took a lot of stepping out of comfort zones for everybody. The intent really was to take the music to reservations, make it accessible. We would we decidedly are not trying to put like a Western European classical music umbrella over it. It's its own thing. It's its own collaboration. And we didn't want to make it feel stiff or inaccessible, particularly to our partners and their communities and things like that. So there's some kind of cultural healing that might take place. Personally, for me, it's about making music with my friends.
The Lakota Music Project celebrates 16 years of bridging cultures, fostering friendships and community, listening and learning, exchanging ideas, and creating new musical works.
For me, I want to make music with all kinds of people, no matter who they are, because I think music really helps us breed compassion and understanding and relate to one another. It's one of the most amazing forms of language.
During the last decade, the Lakota Music Project has evolved and grown, adding instruments and musicians. The collaboration is ongoing.
Let us be clear. We are living under an oligarchic form of society which has created more income and wealth inequality than at any time in our history. And that oligarchic form of society created a corrupt campaign finance system that allows billionaires to make unlimited amounts of campaign contributions. If we're going to defeat Trumpism, it is going to require a multifaceted approach. So let me tell you a little bit about what we are doing. We have already held, as many of you know, 18 fighting oligarchy rallies in 12 states with over 250,000 people in attendance. Over 250,000 people came out, including many independents and Republicans. And we will soon be announcing a new series of rallies which will be located in rural conservative areas, exactly the areas that we have got to turn around. Further, we have hired organizers in congressional districts where Republicans won with slim margins. We are also training thousands of people on how to run for office, from school board to Congress. And we have already announced our support for a number of strong progressive candidates, with more to come. In other words, we are building the kind of grassroots political infrastructure that is needed if we are going to defeat Trumpism. Let me get a little bit more specific. Short term, we're mobilizing opposition around the country to Trump's disastrous budget reconciliation bill. That bill has got to be defeated. Medium term, with Republicans holding only a 4-vote majority in the House and a 6-vote majority in the Senate, we are working hard to end their control of Congress. If we are successful, that will go a long way to putting the brakes on Trump's reactionary agenda. Longer term, we are building a political movement which is taking on the billionaire class, taking on the right-wing extremist Republican Party, and taking on a corporate-dominated Democratic Party whose leadership is wedded to maintaining the status quo. We are fighting, to quote President Abraham Lincoln in 1863, for, quote, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If there was ever a time in American history when we need to come together, now is that time. If we continue to fight for the basic principles of economic, social, racial, and environmental justice, I am confident that we will not only get through this unprecedented crisis in modern history, but that we will lay the foundation for a better and more just America in the future. Thank you very much.
Today, A growing body of high-quality science demonstrates that abating vacant land can dramatically reduce crime in neighborhoods. These changes do not require large-scale structural investments from taxpayers. Rather, they require local partnerships between landscape workers, contractors, and municipal organizations to address cleaning up blighted blocks. Research shows that dramatic impacts can be made by addressing these problems block by block. Given that crime and related problems are highly concentrated in the same places, this means that strategic planning can have large-scale population benefits.
So I'm John McDonald. I'm a professor of criminology at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm here with Manhattan Institute as part of the Urban Policy Series. We're looking at the DHS land care program here, which is developed to try to clean and green abandoned vacant spaces. We're here on Somerset Avenue in Kensington. This is the epicenter, ground zero, if you will, of the heroin epidemic. It also happens to be Philadelphia's #1 crime hotspot, but just a couple hundred feet away, you see this well-maintained vacant lot. It's been cleaned and green. It's not full of trash and debris. There aren't people laying out here sleeping. And well, just a few hundred feet away, there's a whole different sense of kind of disorder and trash. And just shows you how much of a difference kind of the built environment of places can make in terms of our safety and health.
Imagine a likely scenario where 100 blocks in a city are responsible for 20% of all serious crime. Addressing blight on these blocks alone could translate into a 5 to 10% reduction in crime for the entire city. Changing places is easier than changing people. We know enough now to move beyond waiting for reform to happen. Cities now can partner with local contractors, community groups, and urban residents to pilot interventions in their most problematic high-crime city blocks. The result of John McDonald and Charles Bernass's small-scale pilot efforts, as demonstrated in this paper, can be studied to see what aspects of their work matter for your community and what can be done on a larger scale that will impact an entire city.
We end today's show with part 2 of my recent interview with the reporter Chris McGreal. I began by asking Chris McGreal to discuss Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman.
We see Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman. He immigrates to South Africa in 1950, and that's really when apartheid's just starting to kick in. The 1950s are when the first laws, South Africa had discriminatory laws before, but you see the specific apartheid laws, which are much more aggressive and in many ways reminiscent of the Nazi Nuremberg laws against Jews in the 1930s. They have very similar echoes in stripping black people from the right to work in certain places, their movements, controlling them, confining them to areas. You already had a situation which is now, come to the fore because of recent events with Trump. With the sanctions over land, is that the 1913 Land Act had already deprived most black people of land in South Africa anyway. At that point, the 7% or 10% as it was of the population that was white owned more than 85% of the land under the Land Act of 1913. So the apartheid laws kick in the 1950s. Elon Musk was born in 1971 in Johannesburg, and at that point the Prime Minister was a guy called John Vorster. And John Vorster's background is very telling, really, because Vorster in the 1930s had been a member of a neo-Nazi militia called the OB, which was openly sympathetic and linked to the Nazis in Germany. By 1971, when Elon Musk is born, that man is the Prime Minister of South Africa. And Christian nationalism is the basis of not only the political philosophy, but the entire education system that Elon Musk is brought up into.
So take us from Elon Musk's grandfather and moving to South Africa in the 50s to his father, how they gained their wealth.
So Elon Musk's grandfather moves there in the 1950s. He's not particularly prosperous. He arrives without a lot of money, but it's Elon Musk's father, Errol, who makes the real money, principally through investments in emerald mines in Zambia. And, mining conditions in southern Africa in that period were really pretty dire in the 1960s and 70s. Very high death rate, very poor conditions, but the owners got very rich. And Musk lived what can only be described as a neo-colonial life. If you were white South African in that period and you had any money at all, you lived with servants at your beck and call, you lived in sprawling housing, and what you see with Errol Musk is that when we get a glimpse into just how much money he had when he and Elon's mother get divorced, she says at the time that, well, he owns a yacht, he owns a jet, he owns several houses, so there was considerable wealth there.
Was the grandfather of Elon Musk on the record in his support for Forster?
Well, he was certainly on the record in his support for apartheid, very vividly so, yes. And he said that that's why he'd moved to South Africa from Canada in 1940 was in support of it. Now, the grandfather himself is killed a few years later in a plane crash, but is not known what Elon Musk's grandmother's personal views of Forster particularly were, but they were both avid supporters of the apartheid system, and the grandmother lived for a number of years afterwards.
I almost felt like I was listening to crickets, kind of meditative and prayerful.
They have been working on this sand painting for 6 days. So they put a lot of hard work and effort.
And the rest of the geometry, so you know how they had all the shapes?
All the color pattern and design, they have to memorize. We are doing everything according to the scriptures.
When I walk into work, I saw them setting up. I took a few pictures each day. I saw the center be created.
But at the end, it will be destroyed and dismantled. To symbolize the impermanence of all the phenomena.
There's a beginning and an end.
That nothing lasts forever.
And there's no attachment to the actual thing. It's kind of like when we moved from one home to the other, right? What happened? We had a wonderful time in the old place, and now we moved, and we started a new place, right?
I don't feel too sad, just a little.
And you step back and you move on. That's just life.
The New York Times has revealed that the Trump regime is collaborating with Palantir Technologies on a data-sharing initiative that could lead to the creation of a massive federal database containing personal details on nearly every American citizen. According to the report, such a centralized system would dramatically expand presidential surveillance capabilities. Palantir, a Colorado-based AI data analytics firm co-founded by prominent tech billionaire Trump backer Peter Thiel, is to aid in assembling a comprehensive database of Americans' personal information, according to unnamed Palantir staff and government insiders cited by the New York Times. Founded in the early 2000s by Peter Thiel alongside Joe Lonsdale, Stephen Cohen, and current CEO Alex Karp, Palantir has built a reputation for secrecy and high-level government contracts, and while it does serve private sector clients, much of its work centers on U.S. defense and intelligence, as well as international operations. Thiel, a billionaire tech investor best known for co-founding PayPal with Elon Musk and being the first outside investor in Facebook, has long been an influential figure in conservative political circles. He named Palantir after the seeing stones in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, a nod to the firm's ambition to create powerful tools for insight and surveillance. Palantir's work has often drawn scrutiny, particularly for its support of controversial government programs. The company's provided tools to ICE for tracking immigrants during Trump's aggressive deportation campaigns and has confirmed providing intelligence services to the Israeli military, an action condemned by human rights advocates but defended by Palantir. They said, "We don't mind being the bad guys."
One world or none. That's pretty hard to envision a third way. And so that's where I think the biblical language, it sounds crazier, but it's actually more hopeful. One world or none, those are the two options if you're a political atheist.
Right.
We have human self-government or human self-destruction. And it's a choice of two incredible evils.
Despite public pushback, the company has enjoyed a lucrative relationship with the federal government. Since Trump's return to office, the firm's federal earnings have surged. Peter Thiel's political influence remains significant. Besides his deep financial backing of MAGA Republican campaigns, donating more than $1.25 million to Trump in 2016, Thiel has ties to many officials now shaping tech policy. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which played a key role in selecting Palantir, reportedly employs several individuals with prior connections to Thiel's companies. Thiel himself has highly questionable and contradictory views on the role of government. He clearly doesn't care for democracy and has bamboozled Trump and other nations' leaders with his pseudo-intellectualism, speaking in a highbrow, tech know-it-all style that is impossible to fathom because it's gibberish. Gibberish that closes deals for billions.
We need to somehow pull things back together. It's what the universities were supposed to do. Don't think they will do it, but you have to figure.
After years of deconstruction, you're calling for an act of reconstruction.
Yeah, it may not happen in the progressive cult that is the university, but still, it is really a time for reconstruction.
Esto es como más o menos como la construcción, ¿no? Hay maestros, ingenieros, albañiles, oficiales, ¿no? Peones, igualito, acá igual, ¿no? Según va pasando los años, la experiencia que vamos adquiriendo, vamos, ¿no? Tomando ya responsabilidades más grandes.
I like that. Beauty.
Que probablemente este puente haya sido el primer puente incluso a nivel mundial. Por eso dice, ¿no? Entre ellos conversamos y nos dice que es el padre de todos los puentes, ¿no? hasta la actualidad.
Siempre nosotros del distrito nos sentimos con este puente Inca que se ha reconocido a nivel nacional, mundial, ¿no? Que es nuestro patrimonio cultural de la humanidad, ¿no? Que siempre este puente visitan de otros países, de otras naciones, así los policías todos, o sea que los turismos también vienen, ¿no? Entonces, de todo el país. Y también por ahí nosotros nos honramos con Dios con este puente Inca.
Episode 27 and the ongoing eruption at the summit of Kilauea drew large crowds to Hawaii Volcano's National Park on Sunday. The event began that morning and lasted nearly 11 hours, with all activity confined to the summit caldera. Lava fountains reached heights of at least 1,100 feet, or 340 meters, which were a little less than the fountains measured in the previous episode. The USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory was able to restore some key equipment just before the episode got underway. This view is from a thermal camera that was just brought back online. Approximately 1.5 billion gallons of lava erupted during the episode. Scientists say this is equivalent to 7.7 million cubic yards, or almost 6 million cubic meters, enough to fill nearly 2,500 Olympic swimming pools. Flows covered 80% of the crater floor and continued to slowly move and glow even after the fountains stopped. The lava will cool and solidify over the coming days. Scientists say the eruptive plume from the episode reached at least 20,000 feet, or 6,000 meters, into the sky. The plume is different from the lava fountain. It usually contains high levels of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. During the episode, light and variable winds combined with thermal effects from the hot lava, causing the plume to move around within the crater. At times, it appeared to slowly churn like a tornado, with tephra and ash swirling around the caldera. The eruption is now paused. Inflation continues and seismic tremor has returned to slightly elevated levels. Scientists say more time and data are needed before a forecast window can be made for episode 28. For now, the USGS volcano alert level for Kilauea remains at watch.
See, we are all waiting for something to happen in our lives. We are all waiting for a greater journey, a greater purpose to be showed to us. But someone very wisely asked, what is the way? When the Pandavas were exiled into the jungle, there was no one to sort of guide them, and they were lost. And then they met this eternal being, a yaksh. And the yaksh says, I will help you, but I need my questions to be answered. So he and Yudhishthir Maharaj sort of had a debate, a question and answer session. And there were many questions asked, The yaksh asked, which is the most astounding thing in the world? So Yudhishthir Maharaj said, it is the human mind which is the most astounding thing in the world. When the yaksh said, explain why the human mind is the most astounding thing. So Yudhishthir Maharaj says that it is the mind that sees one day this journey of life will end. Our own loved ones will carry us on their shoulders, will take us to a cremation ground, will either bury us, cremate us, burn us according to their rituals. And at that moment, when we see that our loved one has departed, it is the mind that will think about God. It will think about Vairagya. It will think about that we too also have to leave this world. And for a moment, we will have this feeling to want to connect to God and to fulfill our purpose. But the moment when this mind returns back home, when we return back to our daily lives, again the illusion, the maya of the world will entrap us, and the mind forgets its purpose. So the mind is the most astounding thing. In a moment, it can connect us to God. In a moment, it connects us to maya. So many questions were asked, but the final question that the yaksh asked is, Ka pantha, that what is the way? Because many people have many philosophies, many books teach many teachings. So Yudhishthir Maharaj says that no book can be the ultimate truth, because authors can present their views in different ways. No one sage's word can be used as the final word. One logic can cut the other logic, Like if I present a logic, someone else can present his own thesis. So logic can be cut by logic. So the only way to know that what path we must take is Mahajano Yena Sapantha. We must walk the path that the great masters that have come before us have walked the path. So this is very important. We are all in this journey of life. What is life? It's different experiences, moments of our memories put together. And each experience has an influence on us. Some influences are positive when we meet positive people who are our mentors, who are our guides, people who inspire us. But there are also people that do not inspire us. They cause problems in our life. They might cause trauma in our life. They might hurt us. They might hurt our feelings, our emotions. So each experience that we've gone through either has a negative and a positive experience. But within the negative and the positive experience, what we have to realize is truth is not the experience itself. Truth is the ability to experience life itself. A lot of people get stuck up in what they want, what they desire, what they have, what they do not have. But we do not realize that the greatest gift that is given to us is the gift of breath, is the pranayam that is constantly happening inside of us.